hello everybody. This event for us has been a long time in the making. So thank you for everybody that is that's joining us today. We've had lots of people register in their hundreds, and we can see the participants, the kind of panelists this end here. We can see the participants creeping up second by second. So thank you for everybody that's joining us. So if you could all, when you log in, just kind of jump on the chat, come and say hello. I can see that there's people here from Liverpool,
Australia,
Melbourne, Australia, people from Islington. So we're kind of truly global here, which is fantastic. It's great. It's great to see. So as we were kind of getting into this before starting, some of you may have heard this is a conversation that personally, as a recruiter, has been a conversation that I've been very, very keen to have with a number of people for some time. But I think now is the kind of perfect time to have this conversation. And the conversation is a straightforward one. What does the future hold for the business support sector? So I am absolutely honoured to be joined by 5 of the most instrumental, famous, influential people in our industry who have all given up their time to offer some insights and advice. Because quite frankly, we have literally been bombarded with questions over the last couple of months, and it's really difficult to kind of answer them all in piecemeal. So I thought it would be really good to kind of get a collection of people who have all got very different opinions and what have you, to get a nice spread of answers, to give some good advice to you guys. So I'm going to go around the panel now and ask everybody to introduce themselves, and starting with you, Kat. Come and say hello to the audience.
Hi everyone, I'm Katherine Araniello. I'm the London Deputy Leader at PwC for Secretarial Services and Workplace, and it's a delight to be here. Thank you.
Good stuff, thank you. And over to you, Lucy.
Hi, I'm Lucy Brazier. I'm the CEO of March and Publishing. We publish Executive Secretary magazine, and we do all sorts of events and training and consultancy.
Good stuff. And Lauren?
Hi, I'm Lauren Bradley. I'm the founder of The Officials. I've been an assistant for over a decade, and I'm now a trainer, corporate trainer and mentor.
Good stuff. And Danielle Francis?
Hi, I'm Danielle Francis. I'm an executive assistant at a management consultancy. I've been an EA for over 15 years now, and I also do mentoring and public speaking. And
you forgot to mention about the your huge trophy cabinet as well.
Danielle. Oh, and I've got just a couple of awards here and there.
Good stuff. And last but definitely by no means least, the wonderful Danielle Thompson.
Oh, thanks, Paul. Hi, I'm Danielle Thompson. I work for Morgan Lewis and Bockius. We are an American law firm in London. Unfortunately, not situated there. Obviously, fully remote working, so can't look out the window at the lovely St Paul's at the moment. But looking forward to this session. Lovely to meet you all.
Good stuff. Okay, so now you've heard from everybody. Let's crack on. We've had loads and loads of questions come through, and we as a panel are super keen to answer as many as possible, really. So so let's get going. And one of the questions that keeps coming up, and it's fair to say that it's probably the biggest question, and it's around remote working and the virtual assistant model. And I think that this is something that in the kind of PA, EA industry, it's fair to say it's probably spoken about the most at this moment in time. So we've had lots of questions around this. And I know, Kat, that you were instrumental with PwC's move into virtual assistants and what have you. I'd like to kind of start with your opinion, if we can, and then we'll kind of work around from there. Can you see, off the back of what we're going through at the moment, a huge rise in these types of working models? And can you see that that's something that, you know, everybody's saying, are all the roles going to change into that? Is there going to be flexibility? What are your thoughts on that at the moment?
So judging by the number of people that contacted me directly through the secretarial manager network, I would say it's definitely something that is on the decision board. People want to know how it's been set up, what the success was, what we learned, what we might do differently. One thing I would say though is we have a model where we've got about 50-50 on-site, off-site for support. I am a strong believer that you need both. I wouldn't be saying, oh, everybody needs to jump on the off-site bandwagon, but I do think there is something for a dual model, because it works for individuals, for people that where remote working would be beneficial, but it also works for your clients and stakeholders as well. And that's why we didn't go down the road at PwC of shifting everybody off-site, because we knew that there would be partners and directors that still need and value that on-site support. So it's how you make that dual model work.
Okay, good stuff. And I know, Lauren, you are a big advocate of running your own business and what have you. And a lot of people are now sitting here thinking, this could be a great opportunity for me to set up a VA business. So what are your thoughts on that at this particular moment in time?
So I'm covering a lot of training on this right now because this question keeps coming up. People are either being furloughed or they're nervous about their job, and they're thinking, well, I've been working from home. This is great. I think it's everyone doesn't want to commute again. Anyone in London, especially, that's the big fear, is the commute. And you think about the waste of time and what you're doing. So virtual assistant is becoming a really interesting option. I also am a virtual assistant and a private PA to high net worth individuals, but I'm always a virtual assistant for them. I have one client out of my clients that I go in and see them. And it's a fabulous model. It has all the flexibility that you want it to be, but also remember, you can be a remote assistant. There are big startup tech companies that are having, or look at PwC, that have remote assistants, remote executive assistants. Ebony Bellhumor of the assistants list is a great example of this. But you have to remember the risk that you're taking on. My advice is, if you want to become a virtual assistant, even if you have a role now and you're thinking about it, start now, because you're starting a business. You need to build your client base, build your authority, build your social media presence. And that takes nearly a year sometimes. Like, what happens is I meet virtual assistants that have been doing really well because they fell into a client essentially, and then don't know how to find the next client. They don't understand the sales cycle. They don't understand the client journey. And so there's a lot of risk and things that you really need to look into and know it's not all going to be amazing right out the gate. But I also think if you want to do it, totally do it. It's awesome if you have the commitment. That's a great insight.
Danielle Thompson, I know that, sorry to be so official because we've got two Danielles, I'm going to have to call by its full names. I know you've worked for law firms for a long time, and it's safe to say that the legal industry, and you know that I know the legal industry a lot and very well, they are perhaps behind the curve, should we say, in terms of the virtual assistant model, and kind of quite hesitant to embrace working from home in the PA spectrum. Can you see that is something that will change in the legal profession after this in the coming months?
I think before we went into sort of this sort of pandemic, I sit on the Secretarial Managers Forum, as does Kat, and we certainly kind of saw a shift. We sort of didn't see a shift. There was lots to working towards agile working rather than sort of virtual working. So I think like all city law firms got hit with the pandemic and then moved out in.
Oh, are you there, Danielle? I think Danielle's frozen. Whilst we get Danielle back, Lucy, what's because this is kind of the number one kind of question that's being asked. What's your view at the moment of remote working and how you can see that shift taking place?
It would be helpful. There we go. I apologise. Yes, so it's quite interesting. Matthew has worked remotely with me, my assistant, forever. I mean, we've never really worked in the same office. He comes in maybe one day a week. And I really think from what Lauren was saying, you know, about being a virtual assistant, being a business, and that actually what you maybe want to look at is remote working as opposed to being a virtual assistant. There is a very distinct difference. So Matt remote works with me. He's not a virtual assistant. If you're going to be a virtual assistant, you need to understand that you're going to need to do marketing, you're going to need to do your own finances, you're going to need to set up as a proper business. And actually there are a great deal of different skills for the skills that you need to be a fantastic EA. And what I find is that when people set up as virtual assistants and they don't understand that, they set themselves up for failure before they start. So, you know, I think a lot of companies now are going to be looking at remote working, mainly because previously they were saying you can't remote work for business reasons. And then during the pandemic, they said you've got to be at home for business reasons. So I think you've kind of proven that you can do it. And certainly I feel, you know, Matthew is hugely efficient. We work really, really well together. And the heart of it all is communication. As long as the communication is strong and you're talking to each other every day and you're making sure that you understand the priorities, it's just as good for me as having an assistant sitting next to me, which is something that I had the whole time I was a publisher before.
Good stuff. And Danielle, recently you've obviously had to make a kind of shift into remote working as well, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
How have you kind of seen the kind of changes, and do you think that this is something that we'll see, from your opinion, we should be seeing more of in the near future?
I think so. It's definitely something new for our company. We very much was similar to what Lucy said, had the kind of EAs, PAs can't work from home kind of mantra, which I've always been a disbeliever of anyway. I do think we can work just as well from home. So obviously this has kind of proven that everyone can, and a lot of people have been, the feedback's been phenomenal. I work on the HR side of things in my organisation as well, so we've been getting a lot of feedback, and everyone has said how well it's worked for them. Mental health has been a big thing that's come up, and people have said their mental health has actually improved because of less stress. They don't have to do the travel, etc. So going forward, I do think it's something that we will be looking at, and I think a lot of organisations will. I kind of agree with Kat in the sense that I don't think it can be 100%. I do think there's that benefit of being in the office sometimes, particularly like we've had new joiners, bless them, who've had to start during lockdown, and they've not had the opportunity of, you know, just casually meeting someone you don't necessarily work with on your team when you're getting a coffee, or when you're in the toilet, or, you know, those sort of run-ins that happen that help you build a rapport with particularly new people just don't happen remotely. So I do feel like it's something going forward. One of the big things for me that I think with remote working is really promoting that it is flexible. Unless you have childcare or other things, it can't be, well, I'm not coming in because that's my working from home day. And I think that's what's going to really cause a problem going forward. I've always been very flexible when I've worked from home, and I can move it around if I need to. Yeah. I think, you know, there might be days that everyone's in the office on a Wednesday, for example, and well, that's the day I want to work from home, so I'm not coming in. I think to really make it work going forward, it has got to be flexible. But I do think we will be less likely. I don't think we'll have 100% capacity in the office Monday to Friday. I do think it will be more of a part-time basis, part-time in the office, part-time at home.
Okay, it's a really good insight. And Danielle, sorry we lost you there. It's good to have you back.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's fine. A couple of people have specifically asked about the legal sector, so it will be good to kind of, you know, finish off hearing what you were about to say on that.
Yeah, I think the change of environment, as I say, I think a lot of firms pre all of this were working towards an agile working, so they were able to sit anywhere in the office, and maybe sort of start introducing the working from home initiative. Certainly from a support point of view, I agree with Kat as well, and that you can't just have everybody working from home. There needs to be a support system in the office. I mean, during this, at the moment, we've got facilities guys going into the office. We've got document services guys going into the office because things still need to be done. But and obviously that's with no one in the office. But if you still got some people office and some not, you still need that support on both ends, I think.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. So one of the other questions that that has been coming up a lot is the rise and integration of artificial intelligence, and I can see everyone kind of smiling along with that. Now, I've spoken to lots of different people about this, and Jeremy Burrows, for one, is he works for an AI company, right? So we all know what he does. So it would be really good to kind of get some opinions on. People are worried about it, right? People are worried that their jobs are going to go because it's all going to be, done remotely and automatically. What's people's thoughts on that? So if anyone wants to. I can see that everyone wants to have say something about that. So feel free to jump in. Who wants to go first?
I'm really happy to go.
Go, Lucy. Yeah.
It's my pet subject, really. So
yeah.
Before we went into COVID, everybody was talking like mad about AI and saying that they felt that it was going to take over, and there were varying opinions on it. And certainly when I was teaching, it was something that I was talking about a lot. I was seeing companies more and more looking at dividing their teams up and putting teams in place that were like the old typing pool, so that the task-based stuff was getting done by that pool of people, but then upskilling their assistants so that they were far more involved with the business and more able to support at a higher level. So what I would say is COVID, if anything, has accelerated that process, I think. You as an assistant, if you look at the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report, it is saying that the assistant role is on that list, I think number 3 is one of the roles that's going to disappear. I think that's total nonsense. I think if you are a task-based assistant who is doing the same things over and over again repetitively, then yes, eventually AI will take over those things. But I actually think AI is a tool which you can use so that you can then get into doing more interesting work, and that's going to be the future of the profession. Supporting at a much higher level to make sure that you are providing a return on investment for your expenses.
And that's a great point. Anyone got anything else they want to add to that?
I completely agree with Lucy. To be honest, I haven't heard a single presentation or webinar or any article that really is telling us anything about AI and assistance in that it's going to be replacing our roles in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, if you know DeepMind, which is like the leader in artificial intelligence, even their amazing AlphaGo, if you guys have watched that, it's incredible. They said was not even AI, it is intelligent as a washing machine, is what they said. So when it comes to AI, when we're talking about things like Amazon Prime is something that you can right now order something in an hour, which we could never do before. It's an assistance stream. You can get something right to your door. It's going to be like that. It's all going to be tools, at least in the near and distant future, that right now it's only going to make help with those repetitive tasks that we didn't want anyway, right? And it's going to help push us into being more strategic business partners and being to really understand that you're standing toe to toe with the CEO, and it's time to put that hat on and really take your job to the next level. We like those little tasks, but now we'll be like the liaison for those products. So we'll still be ticking those boxes that we like sometimes when we have major projects where we can't constantly tick boxes, but I am not afraid of it in any way. In fact, I love apps. I'm doing a thing on 5 apps later today that I absolutely love because they only help our role. I think I welcome it with open arms. I wouldn't be scared.
Good stuff. And has anybody got any kind of insights and further opinions on AI and how it can help us and kind of relieve a little bit more of people's fears?
I'll jump in there. We've heavily invested in our tech at PwC. We are all Googled up. Everything is streamlined, etc. And there are a couple of things that have come up for me that things like automated meeting scheduling, things like that. you can't beat the emotional intelligence that goes into that. Yeah, you can set up an app or a bot that can, schedule meetings, but actually we know that an executive secretary will know her boss's diary or his boss's diary inside out, back to front, knows what can be moved, knows what's being held here. I can't see how a bot or AI can actually even do that. I think it's good for certain things, but that emotional intelligence and somebody knowing kind of how you prefer to work, working styles, preferences, things like that, that will never go, in my opinion.
And I think the key thing to that is, where the best business support professionals, they use their initiatives, they think outside of the box, they go that kind of extra above and beyond. I know, Lucy, when we last had a conversation online, you were talking about the bits and pieces that Matt does kind of, without being asked, the schedule packs and moving things around and making sure this is in place, this is in place, this is in place. It just can't be done, can it? But with a bot and what have you. So okay, fantastic. That's good. People are asking, and this isn't a premeditated question at all from a recruiter's perspective. People are worried about finding a job, okay, and people are worried about when recruitment is going to kind of come back. I've been doing lots of research about this, so we can kind of plan for the future as a recruitment agency. Have you guys got any thoughts on what the kind of outlook looks like over the coming months in the recruitment arena?
That's a tough one, Paul.
I
think so. I look at my recruitment process, and it usually most roles come up because somebody vacates the role. Yeah. And I think it depends on if our candidate's going to be moving around, i.e., is company A recruiting that candidate A can apply for a role at, which therefore creates a vacancy. And I don't know, it's still too early to say, but I would sense that there would be some nervousness from people around moving companies. So that's the key driver for me, in terms of vacancies coming up. I think companies will be cautious and not necessarily look to immediately replace where there is a vacancy. They might be creative around that, but it's very early days yet.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy to share some insights if unless anybody has got kind of anything that they want to add to that.
I was just going to say, recruitment at our company hasn't slowed down, so we've still been recruiting as much. I think a lot of it is going to depend on the new model that we talked about earlier about whether it's 5 days in the office or not. So I do think that that's going to change, but I think at the moment it's more people are looking at how they want that role to look rather than there not necessarily being a role. So I wouldn't worry too much. I do think obviously have been lots of people that have lost their roles and that have been furloughed, but I think again that has been very much circumstantial. It doesn't mean going forward that's going to carry on necessarily. I mean, I know I've been approached for about 4 or 5 different roles during lockdown that they're still recruiting for other companies. So I do think that it will flourish still, particularly going forward. But I would just advise anyone who is in that position to really use this time to up your skills, to do your research, to learn, review your CV, even do some volunteering. Anything that just can kind of enhance your CV and just make it a bit more dynamic and a bit different. So you're in a really good position when the market kind of does reopen.
Yeah,
I would agree, but I also think that you are allowed, if you're furloughed, to do training. You're not allowed to work, but you are allowed to do training. So those things that they bring you, that they put on your desk and you go, oh, no, I hate that, or I don't quite know how to do that. Those are the things you need to go and look at. I'm hearing from a lot of assistants that they are taking this opportunity to reevaluate, and actually they really don't want to go back to working the way they were before. And some of them have found that they've been treated very, very badly by their businesses, and therefore they're looking for other things or looking at doing things slightly differently. So you may find that there are vacancies out there because people decide they don't want to do it quite the way they were doing it before and are looking for something different as well. So just make sure you're prepared.
Fantastic. And I think that kind of moves us perfectly onto one of the big questions that keeps coming up, and that is around what people can be doing in this moment, and kind of having, diving a little bit deeper into what you're saying there, and, what are kind of from a panel's perspective, what would be the kind of key things that we would be recommended to, business support professionals to be working on here and now to help them upskill in terms of training and bits and pieces like that? I know, Lauren, this is something that you are super passionate about. So do you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, so one is you have to increase your visibility. I think a lot of assistants are hiding at the moment. They don't want to bother people. They know that their executives have children sometimes, or they're really busy trying to get the whole company to go remotely. And that's all kind of, the dust has settled. But I had a training with the university the other few weeks ago, and 10-year relationship with an executive, and they weren't calling them. They were like, I don't know if I use Teams or email. I was like, did you pick up the phone? And they went, and they said, I had a great relationship. And then suddenly they're not talking to me. And I'm like, well, okay, you have to pick up the phone. And two, so visibility, make yourself indispensable. That's always important for an assistant. And that means not just ticking the boxes, that you're giving your opinion, that you're being the eyes and ears of the company, that you're helping everyone around you. And that really relates into culture. If there is no culture at your company, you are now the culture curator. If there is a great culture at your company, you're now the culture keeper. And it affects every area of the company. And a company is less likely to, especially small to medium business size companies, less likely to remove someone that they know has a very strong tie in a company. And so this is the time to be visible, be indispensable, and throw yourself into culture and be an advisor and a coach to the executives that you're supporting.
Fantastic advice. And has anyone got anything that they'd like to add to that?
I agree. It's, I mean, in the legal industry, it's sometimes seen as an industry that doesn't really move. The job sort of stays the same unless you're sort of part of one of the real kind of agile firms that are sort of at the front and leading the pack. But essentially the secretaries, PAs, assistants, whatever they are, they should just look at what else they can do. It's not, and it is simply as that, what else can I do to help? And pushing forward and trying to take admin off of their desks, doing training, all of those sorts of things are really going to shine and make them sort of stand out above everybody else, I think.
Okay.
I think it's a time to learn more about your business. I keep saying that assistants know an awful lot about their business, but they quite often don't understand it. And this whole COVID situation is actually a great opportunity for you to show how amazing you are as a partner. So don't sit there being reactive and waiting to be told what to do. Make sure that you're sitting in on leadership meetings so that you're understanding what is coming up in the future that you can add value to. Make sure you're understanding what workloads are coming, make sure you're understanding what projects there are, and then maybe take responsibility if people are committing to do things for chasing those up on behalf of your executive, but read everything. Just make sure that actually you're inserting yourself into situations where you feel uncomfortable. Maybe you can start writing briefing documents for them. Maybe you can be involved in putting new procedures and processes in place that are going to need to be done. But whatever, be coming up with ways, as Lauren says, of being indispensable, so that your business really understands how you're able to partner at the highest level. When you go back to your businesses, there's never been a better time to show what you're made of and to make the change, because there are going to be so many changes that are being made already, that it's just one more. And you could actually end up with the role that you always wanted just by putting yourself forward and becoming more visible.
Lucy, I absolutely agree there. I would just jump in and say for us, our strategy has been with all of our staff whilst we're all on, working from home, is that connected execution piece is vital. Our clients, our partners and directors are doing it with our clients. We want our business support to do that with their clients, so their stakeholders. Keep asking them questions, keep asking them what's coming up, what are you working on, how can we help? Because that is where you'll find those opportunities, and you'll be even more valued as an individual as well. So that keeping really close to the business is what I'm looking for as well. So
Fantastic. What I'm particularly enjoying about this conversation is that I've got all these questions that have come through, and I keep looking down because I'm like ticking off the questions, because you're essentially answering a lot of the questions that I'm about to ask with the advice that you're giving there. And what I just want to point out to the people that are watching here is one of the questions that I was going to talk about. People are saying that they feel that they've lost contact a little bit with their current organisation. They've lost contact with their bosses and what have you. And I think that question really evolved there, and some really great insights to kind of help you guys build those bridges back to kind of where it was before, and then hopefully again, pushing forward and strengthening that relationship that little bit more. So thanks for the insights there. Now, the next one that I'm going to ask is a very controversial question, in the sense of, as recruiters, we're never allowed to talk about age, basically. And we have been approached by a number of people who are slightly more mature, should we say, and they've asked their questions, given their ages and what have you. It's fair to say that we've had a few questions come through about people feeling a bit worried that they are perhaps older than some other people, and other people are going to get a bit of a preference and what have you. From a recruitment perspective, I know that age discrimination, as far as what we're told, doesn't necessarily happen, but it would be good to get kind of insights on what you guys think about people's perceived lack of opportunity for the older generation against perhaps the younger generation coming through. Has anybody got any thoughts on that?
I have a slight thought on this. So I get asked this a lot. So I do a lot of these tech, and I share about apps a lot, because I think that they make our lives easier. I'm the lazy assistant. I love all these apps. I love all these things that automate all these things for me. And I think the big issue here is the technology gap. And I can tell you that I've had the same conversations with someone who is 23 and doesn't know anything about Microsoft 365. I've had the same conversation with someone at 57 who is saying, I've been a Microsoft-based worker, and now I realize that I can't get a job somewhere else because I only know Microsoft. Or they've been a greeter and they're looking for greeting type jobs, reception jobs, and they feel like they're getting aged out. And to me, this is a self-esteem issue. And this is, you are an assistant. You are a problem solver. This is what you do. You can solve the technology, and the technology is actually getting easier. The user experience is becoming so simple, and it just takes a little bit of breaking through and finding the right people that will help break it down for you, help you see the value. It really helps just standing over someone's shoulder, which is what I find a lot of my training goes towards, because I mentioned something like about how in Microsoft Outlook, how you have to right click on a file to break out your calendar in a separate window, and it's ridiculous. And someone said, how did you just do that? They've been working on Microsoft and that new version for 5 years, because we have big gaps in our knowledge because we don't have training. And so it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, you could be an ace and you still will see something. I see something all the time where I'm like, what did you do? And it's amazing. So please know, if you're someone that's worried about this, I know I've had a conversation with someone that's in here right now about this, that you are totally capable of learning these technologies. In fact, they're getting easier to learn. Office is really hard compared to Google Docs. So please know, if you started on Google Docs first, it's so simplified. There is space for you. And a man, no offense, Paul, but a man wouldn't say that. Men are distinguished and established. And no offense, Alex, who I know is in here too, I love him, but typically we've been conditioned as women to think we're not going to get hired the older we get. And I say, that's BS. And you totally have the power to do this. You just got to say, I got to do it.
Yeah. I was going to say, I completely agree with Lauren and her points. I think I've had quite a few mentoring calls with people who are of an older age bracket since lockdown, worried about this. And one of the big things that does come up is just getting to know technology. You know, you could have been an assistant for 30, 40 years, which is fantastic. And you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of emotional intelligence. but you have to keep moving with the AI. It's the same AI conversation we had earlier. And that's not actually an age thing. AI will affect all of us if we don't stay up to date with the technology and where things are going, and, you know, find ways of making our lives easier. A lot of the apps make lives easier. And I'm always going to seminars and webinars and stuff to find out about apps that I didn't know about, because it's really simple things that can make your life a lot easier. And I don't think it's age discriminating in that sense. But if you do stay in the frame of mind, I've been doing this 30 years, I know what I'm doing, I think that's where you will get left behind. So I think it's just really important to stay up to date with stuff, and just keep listening, learning. You know, that's all of us can do. I personally, in my organisation, have a massive age bracket resistance, and same in my previous organisation. I definitely wouldn't have said there was a particular age group that we recruited at all. And during my time when I have recruited for roles, age for me has not come into it at all. But it is that thing when you say, okay, how would you do this? And people are like, oh, I don't know. Like Lauren was saying, it's like, I need someone that's very, very whizzy, very up to date, very quick, and knows not necessarily the hints and tips, but some of the basics. One of the things that I found really concerning in lockdown, I don't know if anyone else has had this, is people are scheduling times in Outlook and they're not looking at the scheduler to see if anyone's free. They just send it through and they're not free. And then I'm like, I'm getting really annoyed as an assistant, but I'm thinking maybe people just don't know. So I'm actually doing a webinar with my office about some of the basics on Outlook. They don't put on their out of office, so I'll schedule a meeting, they'll decline it until they're out of the office, but they haven't put on an out of office. You know, they haven't, just really, really, which I think is basic, but it might not be basic for everyone. So I think it's just, yeah, making sure that you do stay up to date with what's going on and with technology. And hopefully that won't affect, no matter what your age is. I do think there's always going to be those slight discrimination in many senses of the word. You know, we've been talking a lot about Black Lives Matter and things like that lately. There's always going to be some people who do discriminate, and you cannot beat that. So just the confidence in what you do and in your knowledge and in that you are up to date with things. And I think, you know, attitude and confidence is a big part of it as well.
And not being complacent, because I think, you know, there are a lot of assistants that I meet who come into training that I do, who sit there and say, well, I've been an assistant for 30 years and I know what I'm doing. And, you know, yes, fantastic. But actually, this profession is moving so fast that you have to keep up to date with it. It's a little bit like saying, you know, my first tape recorder was a reel-to-reel, and I got to use that really amazingly. So I'm not going to use an iPhone because I was great at that technology. It doesn't work. You have to keep moving at the pace that the industry is moving. And actually right now, I think if you are sitting there feeling comfortable as an assistant, you're probably doing the wrong job. You need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because with this whole COVID situation, it's driven things forward. And if you haven't got the tech ability, it's really put a spotlight on you, because working from home has meant you have had to have, you know, the tech skills, as Danielle was saying, in order to keep communicating. So just get out of your comfort zone, push yourself, because I also have seen some really amazing older assistants who have embraced the technology and actually have challenged the way that the perceptions of them are within their businesses by doing that, and by going to the bosses and saying, here is a way that we could maybe look at this, and introducing tech to them.
Brilliant. We promised a honest and, to paraphrase Lauren, no BS conversation, and I can, you know, we've given this to our participants. So there's so many different things that, you know, that people can take away from this. It's an incredible conversation, and it's nice to have people kind of giving straight talking advice and, you know, being respectful with it as well. So I think that kind of sums up that question really, really well. One of the things that not just questions that we see come up, not just to this webinar, is about how some kind of tips and helpful advice to kind of keep people motivated and, you know, keep their mental health as tip-top as possible whilst working from home. Because I think it's fair to say that some people have really enjoyed the experience, some people have hated it, you know, to be fair, and some people are kind of struggling with it. So what top tips would you give to kind of answer those, keeping people's mental health in check whilst working from home? Kat, maybe you could be a good person to start with this. Sorry to throw that at you.
That's all right. That's all right. We have had fantastic support from the exec board down around looking after ourselves and looking after each other. And one of the wonderful things that PwC has given to all staff is nobody expecting you to do your full 7.5 hours a day. If you've got children or caring responsibilities or anything, they've actually given us a code that you can put on your timesheet. We've called it the COVID code. You're paid. No one's going to ask you any awkward questions. But if you're unable to complete your 7.5 hours a day because you're nipping to the pharmacy to collect a prescription for somebody you're shielding, you put your time to that. So that immediately gave everybody the green light to just kind of relax a bit. Nobody's monitoring how much work I'm doing. Nobody's putting pressure on me. And we have upped the connectivity rather than, I guess, decreased it. I'm having weekly wellbeing calls with my teams. We are all doing the same. We are having that, we're receiving it from above, we are delivering it below. And there is a lot around, looking after yourself. We've got a Be Well, Work Well toolkit that everybody has access to. We promote this on, all of our comms. And what's really important is those messages are sent and endorsed from the top down. It's not just coming from my boss, it's coming from the people partner on the executive board. So that's where I know it's okay if I'm going to put 2 hours on my timesheet because I do need to do some homeschooling with my child. Not that she's doing homeschooling anymore because she's given up. But that's, and looking after yourself and managing your time. Video conference fatigue is a huge thing. I can spend all day doing things like this and I need to carve out my time so I get breaks. Every so often I'll message one of the managers in my team to say, let's catch up on the phone. I'm going to go for a walk outside. I suggest you do the same. The weather's nice. You don't have to do all of this because this can zap your energy. So they're the kind of things that I'd recommend.
Fantastic. Anybody got anything that they want to add before we kind of throw out a call for some live questions?
Yeah, I would just say that mental health's a really big thing for me. Those who know me, and Paul probably knows, I'm a big mental health advocate. I have mental health issues myself. So I think it's really, really important to find that time for yourself, as Kat said, and not feel guilty about it. I think that one of the blessings in COVID, if there is some, is that it has been great weather, mostly. So take that time to get outside, get some fresh air. I personally do my walks later in the day, but I did realise when I first started working from home, I wasn't taking the time to go outside or to walk or anything until after work. And if you actually think about it, if you're in the office, you are going to go and make cups of tea. You are going to go and have a chin wag with a co-worker. You are going to pop to the post office or pop downstairs, to get something, etc. So those breaks that are naturally built in to your day are no longer there. So you need to really not feel guilty and think, I've done loads of post office activities since I've been at home, but I wasn't at first. I was saving it all to the end of the day. And I'm like, hold on, if this was work, I would pop out to the post office and I would be gone for 10 minutes. And, if you have a shower and you miss a call, it's okay. As something that we've done in our office is I sit on the social committee and we've done meditations every day. So if you go and do yoga, they have a 30-day free meditation each day, and that's only 10-15 minutes. And we do that every morning, and people dial in, but you could just do it on your own. We've also tried to do a little bit of fun things. So we've done, and I'm sure lots of companies have, we've done like a bake-off. We do a quiz every Friday, just to try and have those social aspects of it so that it's not always work. And we do have the odd coffees with colleagues, like virtual coffees and things. But it's, our company's been great at promoting it, similar to Kat, like they have been really good, but it is also something with your mental health that I would say to people, you have to take control of it yourself. No one's going to fix it for you. If you are having a bad day, and I'll be totally honest, I had a really bad day a few weeks ago where I was incredibly anxious and I just wasn't, and I messaged my boss and I said, I'm just going to take a half day this morning. I need to sleep a bit. I've hardly slept. My anxiety is really bad. And then it got to about 11 o'clock and I was like, I can't face working today. And I emailed again and I said, I'm not going to do half day. I'm taking the whole day off. And it sounds awful. I did nothing but lay in bed all day. And I got a takeaway and I did a face mask, and I was just kind of like, ugh, I just had a shit day. Sorry to swear, but I had a shit day. And do you know what? Actually, the next day I woke up, I showered, I did my makeup, I was back on video calls. I felt amazing because I just took that day to myself. And I think that's the thing that's important, is just not to feel guilty on yourself, and just think, if I need a day or I need a moment, take that time.
I think that's such a good point, Danielle, actually, because, you know, my team, Kathleen, my editor, said to me this week, do you mind if I take some time off next week? Because I just realized I haven't had a day off since February. I think because we're at home, we forget that actually we do still have annual leave, and we can give ourselves time off if we want to. But I'm also fine. Libby Moore, who was Oprah's assistant, is very fond of saying that nature is the new corner office. And I kind of agree with her. You know, I am like you, going out walking every day, but I am time boxing things into my calendar to make sure that I'm taking time out to go and have lunch for myself, or a break in the morning, a break in the afternoon, because otherwise I can because I work from home and I'm so passionate about what I do, I can be on the computer at 7 in the morning and not off at 11 o'clock at night. I'm actually saying, I want to catch up with Killing Eve at that time in the evening, and I'm going to have dinner at that time in the evening, because otherwise I wouldn't stick to it. And it's really been great for me, because I'm another one who's had mental health issues. I mean, I burnt out, which is why I ended up starting the magazine, weirdly. But yeah, it's been a testing time, I think. And we have to remember that this isn't working from home. This is working from home in a pandemic, and it's very different to working from home normally. So give yourselves a break and take time out if you need to.
Brilliant, and that's wonderful advice. Now, I want to throw the opportunity for our participants to throw out some live questions. But before we do that, I'm going to throw something on our panel members. I've just been sitting here thinking, how can we wrap this up? So what I'm gonna say is just have a think about, whilst we're waiting for some questions to come through. So in the next kind of 10 minutes, just have a think about what you believe the future holds for business support, that we can go round the table, as it were, to kind of, you know, to summarize at the end from there. It would be great to kind of get your thoughts just on that one kind of singular sentence. What do you believe the future holds? How will it change, if not at all, or what have you? Lauren, I think that you wanted to say something about mental health whilst working from home, did you?
So I was just going to say that I think everyone at some point here can say they've had some type of, as an assistant, some type of mental health issue. And so I think that was amazing that Danielle spoke out and said that, you know, she and Lucy both saying that we can all they have mental health issues. And I think everyone here could probably say they've burned out at some point, because we're helpers and we will give and make ourselves work to make others feel important or get where they need to be. And I agreed with everything she said. I was just going to throw in one thing, which is there's a new app, like brand new, launched right before COVID, could not be more perfect, called JAM, JAMM.app. And it's sort of an answer to how Zoom is exhausting. Does anyone here agree with me that's been doing webinars, that like Zoom is exhausting? It feels like every meeting is a presentation. And it still feels like a meeting. It doesn't feel as informal as like when you have product designers that are standing there in front of a whiteboard talking about something. If you have Google Drive, then at least you're all maybe in Jam and you can all contribute to a whiteboard, but it's not as good. This is fantastic. And you have little bubbles all around of everyone, and you can record it. So for remote, non-linear companies where you're fully distributed, this is absolutely fantastic. And this is where companies are going to be going. They won't have to be tied down to only the local talent that they have, which PwC obviously has understood the value of being able to find talent with outside of your local area. And so this will allow them to collaborate better. And it has like a coffee room, and you can set up rooms where you can see who's in there and just come in and literally see each other, chat and leave. So it's not like Slack where you're typing. You actually can see each other, but they're smaller bubbles, and it just feels more informal and relaxed, and it's great for culture. So I'm throwing that out there for mental health. I think it's great to connect with your employees and remember you're human and you're not just worker bees.
Good stuff. Danielle Thompson, there's a question that's been directed specifically at you, so no pressure whatsoever. see, the question has come through, and it's around working from home in law firms. And somebody is asking, how do you get around the mode of working from home? Amending documents at a law firm, is it going to be the main big problem for PAs who receive the documents they would normally be handed from their direct boss? Is Danielle there, or is she frozen? I think Danielle's frozen. That's a shame. Yeah, Danielle's frozen. Yeah, that's a shame. Okay, so if anybody's got any questions, if they want to type away and let us know, we can answer them here and now. Within all of the questions that we've been sent through, I'm pretty comfortable that we have essentially answered most of the points that have come through in the, in all of our answers and the great detail that everyone put in their answers. So so I think it's fantastic. We've just had another question come through now. Let me just grab this. I believe we should be acting in more of a coaching capacity, helping our leaders to be leaders. They don't often have the time to think leadership. Is this something that we all subscribe to on the panel?
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I think that they're definitely, I think probably everyone's leaders have actually been on pretty much back-to-back Zoom calls, as we said, and it's making sure that they don't lose that touch of what's going on the ground and what's going on with the office. I mean, I personally have a weekly call with my boss. Sometimes he's just checking up on me and we're checking on diary things and etc. But also part of it is for me to give him a bit of info and intelligence on what's going on, making sure that, if I know someone's feeling particularly vulnerable, maybe he can then have a call with them and those kind of things. So I do think that part of it is for us to actually also still do what we would do in the office, really. I would, in the office, it's a lot easier, obviously, to hear what's going on the ground, but I would definitely take him in a room and just say, just FYI, X, Y, and Z. And, I think that's part of my responsibility as his assistant on our weekly calls, is to make sure he does know what's going on, because so much is said to them, but so much isn't. And it's, your job to make sure that what's important and priority is said to them.
Fantastic. So go on, sorry, Lucy.
Sorry, I was going to say that I think it's important to remember that you're employed by your business to look after your executive, not by your executive. And particularly at the moment, they are very, very busy trying to save the world, and in some cases, their companies itself. So you have a duty to train them how to use you properly. So right now, I want you to stop thinking about yourselves as timekeepers, as gatekeepers of people, and start thinking about yourselves as being gatekeepers of time. So their time at the moment is the most precious resource that they have got, even more so than normal. So look at whether this piece of time that they're spending doing this thing is the best way for them to do it, or whether they should be looking at something else. Help them, as Danielle said, to see exactly what the priorities are, so that they are using their time most effectively to make sure that the business is happening in the way that it should be. They're big picture people. You guys do the procedures, you do the processes, and making sure that the detail is correct. So, get out there and show them what you're worth.
Fantastic. Brilliant. We're getting lots of amazing comments coming through on the comment section, and people were saying that that we've answered all of the questions. So let's go around the table. If anybody wants to answer this first, then put your hand up. But I'm sorry to spring this on you, but I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it. What, in your opinion, does the future look like for business, the business support arena?
Well, I'll say something. So I think at the moment, we're going to have a roller coaster. Companies don't know what they're doing. And this is one of the things I think that should free assistants, is that we can work for very talented people, but also they're winging it too. No one, like, everyone's in a new territory, and we're all human. And so we're all in the same playing field, basically. And to what Lucy said, to kind of add to what Lucy said. And so I think there's going to be redundancies. It is going to be, some companies are hiring, but some are not. Some are laying off. assistants, but that doesn't mean that there isn't room for you in some way, shape, or form. And it might be that we do something else for a while just to pay the bills while we build our VA business. It might be that it's the tenacity you have, and preparing your CV, preparing your resume wherever you are in the world is going to be really important. Making sure your digital profile is perfect, you know, tie down those social media accounts where your bum's hanging out, you know, all of those things, and really improve your LinkedIn profile, make it easier for people to find you. Everything's going digital. So please make sure you've got the keywords in there, but also please don't let that scare you. You know that you are a rock star, and rock star things are happening, but companies are looking at their literal footprint and the real estate. And at the moment, they're kind of sad because they can't really cut down on their real estate because we all have to be distanced apart. So half the people can come back and it's still taking up the same amount of room. But eventually they will start paring down property. That's a big thing that's happening. And they're just not sure yet. So even after they start lifting, as they're lifting restrictions, we're going to have a little bit of time where we're still all figuring this out. And so for the near future, I think, we're just going to be rolling with things at least until 2020, I think, well into Christmas. So make decisions based on that. Make decisions on, like, all of a sudden in a month's time, everything's going to be back to normal, because we will be forever changed by this. I think there'll be a level of normalcy that comes back, but we're in for a little bit of a ride for sure.
Good stuff. And Kat, what does the future look like for you?
I think, I don't think we're going to go back to how we were. Even, you know, if by some miracle everything was fine and tomorrow everyone was safe to travel and we had a vaccine. So I think my advice would be open-minded. There will be a blend of, you know, our office, one of our London office is reopened. We're only having very small numbers of people going back in, but, you know, there will be that opportunity to go back into the office, you know, at some point. So start thinking about what that might look like for you. And my advice would be open-minded to every single opportunity that's out there. It's those where you will develop your technical skill set, or have access to people that you haven't necessarily had access to before. And my last point would be you, be authentic. You know, whilst we're all still very remote and it doesn't feel the same, I know I miss my colleagues terribly, not seeing them face to face. And, you know, that's what we really value. So keep being you.
Good stuff. Who wants to go next?
I think it's a huge opportunity. I think business support isn't going anywhere. It's just going to develop into something different. I mean, I'm getting old now and I've lived through 2 recessions. And last recession, I remember vividly that a lot of assistants were laid off, and then they suddenly realized they couldn't do without you. So they hired you all back again. So we're just going in a circle to a certain extent. And I think, yes, as we said earlier, AI is going to take away all that task-based stuff. You need to prepare for the future and prepare to be a proper strategic business partner. Get to know what is going on in your business, understand how to step up. I've got a very quick story, which I think will illustrate it well. I work with Anne Hyatt a lot, who is or was chief of staff at Google. And she told a story how when she was working for Jeff Bezos, Jeff used to employ somebody every year that he called the shadow, and the shadow would follow him around and go to all his meetings and take notes. And the idea is that if anything happens to Jeff Bezos, there are shadows all over the company who know how he thinks. And she said she got halfway through the first year and she suddenly realized that she was also the shadow, and it totally changed the way that she thought about her role and the way that she engaged with it. So what I would say to all of you is that's where you want to aim to be. You want to aim to be the shadow, and to have the skill sets that you have that work so closely alongside what your executive does, but they're 2 totally different sets of skills. So hone them, make sure that they understand what you're adding to the bottom line, and then you're not going to be under threat.
Fantastic. And I can imagine that was an incredible job that individual had. I've done a lot of research on Jeff Bezos and read his books and what have you, and how he kind of conducts himself. So I can only imagine how hardcore that role must have been. The 2 Danielles, what does the future look like for business support for you guys?
I think it's a hard one to answer because we don't have a magic pen that's going to suddenly tell us in 1 or 2 months' time what the world's going to look like. And there's obviously talking about all the second waves of it coming in. So I think everyone at the moment seems to be preparing for some kind of return to the office in September, obviously with schools looking to go back at that point as well. But that's what today they're planning, but that may all change tomorrow. I think listening to what all the other panelists have said, for the legal industry, I absolutely agree. It's just be at the top of your game in communicate with the people that you work for, your managers, your peers, and undertake as much training as you can, whether that's what is being offered internally or there are some fantastic resources out there. Take that time to kind of upskill in any way you can, and it makes you certainly more attractive to your current employer. But obviously, as we know, sort of lots of firms are going to be doing the redundancy route, and obviously you've got sort of more strings to your bow.
Fantastic. And Danielle, to finish us off.
Oh God, this is hard. I feel like everything's been said. I think the main things are there's definitely a future for business support. So please do not worry that we are going to become obsolete and that the role's going to go. We have a future. I think it's very much for us to shape our future and to shape what that looks like. Really do everything you can to become an asset to not just your organisation, but an asset as an assistant. Because in any organisation should be lucky to have you, grateful to have you. There's lots you can bring to the table. And if you have got time at the moment, use this time to just really hone your skills. I think those are kind of the key things. And I agree with everything else really that's been said on the panel, but I am forever trying to upskill and trying to showcase something new that I can do in the organisation. Because like Lucy said, if you're in meetings, you can then start volunteering for more because you're like, oh, actually, I know a lot, but I'm doing a huge amount of HR recruitment at the moment because last year I spent some time doing my HR qualifications. So I've now then honed that into my new role and said, look, I'm now trained. Can I now get the experience? So, try and just find the positives in the bad situation.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And what a perfect way to kind of finish it. Whilst we're talking about honing our skills and what have you, we have two people on this call in Lauren and Lucy who provide amazing kind of training and resources and what have you. So for all the participants on here, make sure that you go and check those guys out because there's lots of different pieces on there that you can learn from. So thank you, Kat, Lucy, Danielle, and Lauren for coming on. As I've said before, this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. The timing of it has been perfect. I couldn't have thought of a better panel to have because everybody's answered the questions so honestly, so openly, respectfully, given good, straight talking, no BS advice, which is exactly what we were hoping to achieve. So thank you. And judging by all the kind of comments that are coming through, people have really, really enjoyed it. So we've achieved what we set out to do. Thank you so much, guys, and thanks to everybody that's joined in. It's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for organising.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.